Hey there, fellow wanderers. I hope you're doing well. If you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you've been here before, I'm sending you a big virtual hug to welcome you back. I'm Becky, the slow traveling wanderer. If you've been following my other videos, you know that I was in Mexico for 2.5 weeks. I'm now back in Austin, posting this last video. While I was there, I decided to visit 2 cities that I was considering as possible places to live once I move over to Mexico around summer this year. Today's video focuses on that second city, which is Mazatlan, Mexico. I was only in Mexico City for a day and a half after my Monterrey trip, and I was back on the road on my way to this paradise on the Pacific coast, or so I'd heard, called Mazatlan. I have a good friend in Mexico City from Culiacan, Sinaloa, about 90 minutes outside of Mazatlan. And we had dinner right before my trip, so I took the opportunity to pick her brain. If you've heard of the state of Sinaloa before, it's probably because it's the state where El Chapo and many other narcos have been born. In fact, it was featured in Narcos Mexico, if you've ever seen that series. I think at the start of it, the character that Diego Luna plays, he's from this town in the hills of Sinaloa somewhere. Anyway, that's where Sinaloa gets its reputation. And because of that, it does have a strong reputation for being linked to the cartels. And even within Mexico, a lot of people avoid traveling to Sinaloa for that reason. So I'll talk a little bit about that later in the video. Suffice to say, my friend said it was fine. She said, no one's going to mess with you, even if you're traveling by yourself. And she said, since many of the families related to the people in that trade live in Sinaloa, they're careful also not to bring crime and problems to Sinaloa, especially to the tourist areas, since the tourist areas and tourism in general provides a lot of local jobs. So all in all, after my discussion with her, I felt okay and I felt more comfortable visiting Mazatlan. And it is a city that I've been wanting to visit for a long time, but I'm not gonna lie, that whole cartel link in Sinaloa in general scared me off for a long time. But I finally decided to do it. So let's jump right in. I get to the airport and I find out that they really stick it to foreigners. First of all, there is no Uber in Mazatlan, which is really unfortunate for us, at least. I'm sure it helps, you know, the local taxi industry, and I get that they're trying to protect their local jobs. The only way to get from the airport to the city center is by taking a local taxi. And I asked them how much it was. It was 430 pesos. Guys, let me just break that down. That's 22 USD for a 30-minute ride from the airport to the historic center. To give you a comparison, I traveled to Mexico City past 3 years and I've been there at least a dozen times. Even till recently, I only pay about 120 pesos, and that includes a tip using Uber, for a 30-minute ride from the Mexico City airport to the city center, right? That's about $6 US. The price that they were charging in Mazatlan is literally the same price I pay in Austin, Texas to get from the airport to my house, which is about a 20-minute ride. So I was like, that's really expensive. I stayed at the Best Western Freeman Posada, which, you know, you see here. It was comfortable. I would say the best thing about the hotel is the location and the rooftop pool, and the view. The view from the top, from the rooftop, is gorgeous. Just check it out. I'll also say that the breakfast here was halfway decent. I mean, most Best Westerns in the US have god-awful breakfast, but the one in Mazatlan wasn't bad at all. So it was a good deal, and I think I paid $58 per night. That's probably a little bit on the high side. There definitely were some other places that were cheaper. After looking at a few, I was just like, I'm just gonna go with basically a hotel brand that I know, and that's why I went with this one. I also caught a gorgeous sunset. Check this out. Before we go further, you may be asking, well, where is Mazatlan? Where is it located? Put a little map together to show you its relation to Austin, where I currently live, Mexico City, and Puerto Vallarta. As I mentioned, you know, there are certain areas that you want to avoid that are about 3 hours out. There's no reason you'd be out there anyway as a tourist, but I'm just calling them out here so that you know. They're all around this area that you see that's called Guasave. I actually don't even know how that's pronounced because I've never been there. But Guasave, Los Mochis, Badiraguato, those are all areas in Sinaloa, right? That's where a lot of the, you know, cartel activity, I would say, is originated, is located, people link to it, etc. But these are also not cities that are touristy, they're really for locals, but just putting it out there so you get familiar with the names. Having said that, Mazatlan felt very safe for me. And again, I always look at it from the perspective, keep in mind guys, that I'm a woman and a single woman, right, traveling in Mexico. So as a guy, man, you definitely are, you know, you're bigger, you're stronger, right? But, you know, as a woman traveling alone, that's always a consideration. But no, I felt very safe. The other thing that definitely stood out immediately is that it was very clean, very strong infrastructure. And what I mean by that is you can always tell by the state of the streets, state of the sidewalks, right? Just to give an example, years ago I traveled to Buenos Aires, but I was there one time in 2010. And it was right after they'd experienced, Argentina's always experiencing hyperinflation and currency crashes and economic issues and that kind of thing. But it was after a particular, you know, crisis that they'd experienced. And it was a few years after, and you could tell immediately, you know, how the city essentially was really suffering, because when you walk the streets, the sidewalks were in a complete, I mean, they were just broken. They had holes in them. They were uneven. You could tell nobody took care of them. There were potholes everywhere. You could tell the state of the infrastructure had been neglected and it was in a really poor state. So there is absolutely a linkage to you know, what you see in terms of the infrastructure of a place that you're at and how the city responds to it and takes care of its own city. And Mazatlan, you can tell, it does a very good job, at least in this area, you know, this big touristy area where people tend to go and visit and hang out. All right, so just so you know where I was staying at the end of the peninsula. You know, there's this little peninsula that sticks out. That's essentially the historic center. And that area all along the coast where you see these arrows that I've put in this map here, that's all the touristy area, you know, the touristy spot, right? That's the place where people go. They want to go get some R&R. I saw a lot of people running, so they get exercise outdoors. You know, people go to local bars and restaurants. And a lot of them are outdoors. So even with COVID, you're outside, sitting outside, you have, you know, the beautiful ocean in front of you. So, you know, people go there for R&R and just to experience a laid back beach lifestyle, right? The people who go there as tourists. So the one thing that I'm going to do a little differently in this video is, compared to the others, is I'm also going to give you an idea of what, you know, the apartments are going for right now in this general area, again, right up against the coast, right? So these are areas that are within walking distance to the beach. One of the things that I use is I use 20,000 pesos, Mexican pesos, as my marker, because that equals 1,000 USD. So I essentially look at, you know, up to that amount. That's what I put in when I use some of these sites. Viva Anuncios, by the way, is a very good site in Mexico to look for rental properties and just get a general idea of what they're going for. Half of 20,000, obviously, is 10,000 pesos. That's a $500 mark, right? So anywhere between 10 and 20 is kind of the sweet spot. One thing to note here, one of the things that I made a mistake with when I was doing this search is I put in venta, which is sales, versus renta, which is rentals. And you can see not a lot of properties came up. So if this happens to you, just watch out for that and look up at the top and you can see inmuebles en renta and inmuebles en venta, and you want the renta, obviously. You can see here the number of properties that are available under 20,000 pesos. And that's a lot when you consider how close it is to the beach. You'll see through my pictures, some of the video that I caught, you know, just the quality of life, the scenery, the activities in terms of restaurants and that sort of thing, weather, availability of good food. Mazatlan, if you don't know this, is known for their seafood. They're the largest fishing port in all of Mexico. So they definitely are one of the top fishing industries, and everything or a lot of what these restaurants serve in Mazatlan especially is completely fresh. So when you think about that and you think about the beauty of this place, and that's not bad when you look at how many rentals are available in this price range. All right, guys, let's look at some apartments. So this first one that I just picked is 13,000 Mexican pesos, which is 650 USD. You can see from the outside, very modern looking. And as we scroll through the pictures, nice kitchen. I like that little island. Again, I'm a single woman, single person, so that I'm really looking at this from the perspective of 1 or 2 people. It's a nice apartment. Then I decided to look at just another one. This one is 14,500 pesos, which is 725 USD. This is right off of the water. I mean, look at that view. You can see it from that second picture there. It's a nice building, condominium type of building. You know, nice little living room, countertop there in the kitchen, nice sized bedroom. You see that? I think it would be great for 1 or 2 people. There's a pool also. I'm a cook, so I love cooking. That's a great kitchen there. Nice little bathroom, and it comes with washer and dryer. So that's not bad at all. That was quick, but I just wanted to give you a quick idea of how many properties are under 1,000 USD for rent in Mazatlan. You can go ahead and check out Viva Anuncios and play with it, and you know, see some other properties if you're interested in this location. All right, so now for my impressions of the city. What you see here is an ode to Carnival, which happens right before Lent, I believe. I'm not a super religious person, but so I think that's what it means. Anyhow, Mazatlan apparently has the biggest carnivals in Mexico. 600,000 people descend into Mazatlan to celebrate Carnival. So just be aware, typically it's only about a 3-day kind of party, festival, if you will, but it's something to know. Obviously with COVID, that's not happening. Like I said earlier, I spent 3 days walking basically throughout Mazatlan, specifically the historic center and then along the hotel zone. And like I said in my earlier comment, clean was one of the things that immediately came to mind. Very well taken care of. You know, the painting is all up to date. It's very bright, very Mexico. Also, you know, you can tell they take care of it. First night when I arrived, I had to stop for some wine and some dinner. And it was good. I stopped at this place here, had a beautiful view of the ocean as the sun set, and I had some fish with some rice and vegetables. It was good. It was good. All right, next day I got up and I actually pulled in 3.5 hours of nonstop walking, guys. So I was just a walking fool. And I got to see, this was a really pretty area. I still couldn't figure out what it was. I think that dome kind of Turkish looking thing is like a restaurant, and this other place with a really cute mint blue roof was a restaurant as well. I then, like I said, saw a lot of people biking, running in the morning. I got out at 8 a.m. Tons of people were biking, running, just, you know, very nice exercise culture. You can see there, you can see this guy running. Clear day with blue skies. The weather was perfect. It did get a little warmer, and that's one thing that I've been told by that one friend that I told you who's from Sinaloa and spent time in Mazatlan. Summers get very, very hot. We're talking 85 to 95 degrees. But when I was there, the high was about 75 to 77, which was very nice. And it did get cool at night. Typical, you know, when you're close to the water. But look at that picture, gorgeous clouds. So I saw a bunch of men gathered here that it looked like they had little fishing boats, and a taxi driver later told me that this is where local people go to buy fresh fish every morning. So they are fishermen. Apparently that's where you buy your fresh fish. You could tell all the seagulls there, obviously, because of the smell of fish. And then I just, you know, kind of walked all the way up through the peninsula towards the hotel zone, which you see there in the far left and far distance. Then went down to the beach itself, you know, walked on the sand, which I love. I love to feel the sand on my feet. So that was nice. I saw this dad walking along the beach with his daughter, and I just thought it was the most tender thing. Just father and daughter. It was very, very touching, and that's very typical Mexico, very family oriented. So I'd made it all the way to that zone. You can see in the far distance, that's where I'm located. And I made it all the way around and down this hotel zone where you see some of those hotels there. And, you know, really in this area, it's mostly for walking. There are a lot of condominiums and stuff there. So it wasn't a whole lot going on, but it was a nice walk. I recorded the Mazatlan sign, which is always nice. They have them all over Mexico. I saw this cute little kind of basket for plastic recycling. First one that I've seen like this throughout Mexico, so I took a picture because I just thought it was interesting. It's a good place, right, to just come in and drop your plastic and they pick it up, so that's good. You can see my feet there. My sandals were killing me, or my feet were killing me. My sandals were tired too. It was a long walk. I walked back to my hotel and look at this site here. It's just gorgeous. I love when the sun glistens off of the water. It's just a beautiful sight. Anyway, I called it a day because I had done a lot of walking and figured the next day I would go out and visit the historical center. So I started walking in the historic center, as you see here. The one thing that caught my attention is there was a restaurant that had these plaques, and if you don't know this about Mexicans, Mexicans have a tremendous sense of humor. It's one of my favorite things about Mexico and Mexicans. And at the bottom here it says, no leas esta frase. And then in parentheses, me caes bien por rebelde. That means don't read this phrase. And then it says, but I love you for being rebellious. And then at the top right it says, solo faltan los tamales y empiezo la dieta. So the only thing that's missing is tamales, and then I'll start my diet. Anyway, it's cute stuff there. So as you can see here, look at these beautiful buildings, very similar architectural style as we saw in Monterrey, right? That single level in that 1800s style, right? Mid to late 1800s. You know, those long doors and windows with those steel bars that are very common in colonial type homes. I'll just let you get a feel for the city as I walked around. Check it out. What's the verdict? Well, the verdict is Mazatlan is definitely a beautiful coastal city. If I were ready to live a laid-back, retired lifestyle by the beach, it would definitely be a top contender. But I'm still in this phase of life where I'm moving around a lot, and the limitations on the airport to city center transfer situation is not only expensive if I'm flying out a lot, but not conducive to easy travel. Also, the city is smaller than I'd like. So having said that, I did see a number of American and Canadian retirees while I was there. And if you are a person who is looking for a laid-back beach lifestyle, gorgeous scenery, a city with an exercise culture, exceptional seafood, and you're okay with, you know, some rowdy weekends here and there. People tend to like to have a good time in Mazatlan, and during the weekends they'll definitely be partying and playing loud music, etc. But if you can manage that, then the rents here are definitely affordable. As you saw, the apartments are very high quality. Many of them are right up, you know, within either on the beach or within walking distance to the beach. and a lot of them come with modern amenities. So, you know, all in all, it is a beautiful location and definitely affordable. Well, folks, after this trip, it's become clear to me that the only city that really meets what I'm looking for at this time in my life is the city I visit quite often. You guessed it, Mexico City. The only reason I was considering another city is because Mexico City has this weird apartment rental law that requires you to have a guarantor, something called an aval or a fiador. And the person has to have property in Mexico, preferably in Mexico City proper, and it gets quite complicated. But I'm now convinced that I need to figure it out. And since I do have friends in the city who can help, then that, you know, helps me. Stay tuned for my next video on why Mexico City is such an amazing, dynamic, and beautiful city and why I've chosen to live there. All right, amigos, I hope you found this information and video helpful. If you did, please give it a like and consider subscribing. I will leave it here. Hasta la próxima. See you next time. Bye.